I used to be a teacher, and I remember that feeling of standing in front of a class and hoping that what you had prepared for your students would land and help them move forward. And that was always a mixture of fear and free fall and also fun. But you do your best because it matters. Now I'm going to ask you to imagine something. You are a teacher. Choose any subject that fits. And you arrive at school one morning and you're told that from now on, you're going to teach your class in another language. Not next year, now. That is what the nation of Rwanda asked of an entire generation of teachers. In 2008, the government changed the language of instruction in the classroom from French to English. Not because everybody was ready, but because their leadership understood that English was the gateway to the knowledge economy that they were determined to build. And so, in the years that followed, all the attempts to make that transition real were falling short. Courses, workshops, cascaded delivery, traditional approaches for a new kind of challenge. And here's the scale of that challenge. UNESCO tells us that by 2030, there will be a global shortage of 44 million teachers. 44 million. That's not a problem that a workshop fixes. We need new thinking. Now, this year, the Rwandan government launched an initiative that's never been tried before. A single, simultaneous, digital upskilling program in English for every educator in the country. Primary schools, secondary schools, teacher training colleges, universities, everyone, 150,000 professionals. Not a pilot, not a cascade, everyone. And this is only possible because of a fundamental redesign, yes, of the tools and the technology, but more importantly, a redesign of the leadership logic behind it. The question isn't what we build, but it's how we lead. Why do our attempts at scaling learning tend to fail? When faced with complexity, we like to add. Our instinct is to put more tools, more technology, more initiatives, more control. And now enter AI. The OECD revealed a rather uncomfortable finding in its 2026 Digital Education Outlook. It showed that when AI is introduced in education, performance improves, completion rates rise, something called engagement looks good. But when those same support tools are taken away, performance can drop, sometimes below where it started. That's not scaling learning. That's scaling the appearance of learning. Now, I've had the privilege of working inside this project in Rwanda as part of my role with Effecta Education. And what I have been observing in this coalition that has been brought together to deliver this are three key leadership directions that can truly make learning and capability happen at scale. So let's take a look and think about what it is that we're actually delivering. There are certain ideas around how we want to gather our thinking, and I'll name the three that how I focus on this. It's between context, connection, and community. In terms of context, we were looking at what were the training materials that were being used in all this time, and even what we were providing. And we came across something that really stood out. We were seeing that the teachers were being asked to design their dream vacation, to prepare for a networking reception, answering questions that had nothing to do with their lives or their students or their classrooms. And this is the bias that's baked into so much global training material. And the problem is it doesn't only make learning harder, it makes learners feel invisible. We're not thinking of their context, the world that really relates to them. And so we started to think of what new initiatives we could put in, even featuring this entire initiative in a national soap opera heard on the radio, where people are at home hearing about teachers who are trying to learn. And that is really a decision you can make. Designing for a learner's context isn't translation. It's about really thinking about whose reality your system is built for. And that leads me to connection. We learn by doing, not by receiving. We learn by attempting and failing and getting feedback. But we also learn when we know what the purpose is. There has to be a clear connection between our progress and our purpose. But that OECD finding that performance can drop when AI sometimes is introduced in education, it happens because when it's poorly designed, then it removes effort. And effort is where learning lives. Effort for the Rwandan teachers meant practicing English in speaking and in conversation and in writing, supported by other learners and teachers, getting feedback from an AI system that's designed to be able to have that conversation with every single individual to provide developmental feedback. Designing learning that surfaces effort, that's a conscious choice about whose reality your system is built for. And so we also want to think about how it's all coming together. Learning doesn't happen in isolation. I mentioned that teachers and learners were supporting each other, but there was a whole community involved. This program has brought together government ministries, international partners, specialists, and educational institutions, everyone with different mandates and different understandings of success. But what holds it together is a shared vision that everyone is bought into, where each part feels ownership and not obligation. And this is because the Rwandan leadership led a rallying cry around co-design and collaboration, not asking, can we do this, but asking, what is it going to take from each one of us to get there? And so we design trust together. We set the standards and we put human judgment at the center of consequential decisions. But we also design AI and use it for what it does best, providing tireless developmental feedback and practice in a system purpose-built for that outcome. And then you let it run. And this designed trust isn't just about trusting technology, it's about trusting the people who will take it forward by strengthening this community. This program is designed for its own progressive redundancy by focusing on the strength of that community, building Rwanda's professional capacity sustainably so that one day the platform, the partners, even our team are no longer needed. The Rwanda case is remarkable, but the learnings transfer more broadly. But here's what I think is the real story. 150,000 educators building their capability, teaching in another language, building their confidence and supporting each other, and then walking into classrooms where students will see something they don't often get to see. A teacher who is a learner, who makes mistakes, who gets feedback, who tries, and who grows. That is a multiplier effect that no program can plan for. When teachers develop, their students' possibilities change. When enough teachers develop, a whole generation's possibilities change. I started as a teacher, and I've spent my career since then trying to understand the conditions in which people genuinely develop. And what working in Rwanda has really taught me is that there are decisions that can be made that can focus on this shared outcome for so many. Context, connection, community. Each one of those a focus for leadership decisions to design learning that lands and lasts beyond you. Thank you.